Let's start with you, Ed. I want to start with the Adrian Peterson situation. What news did you hear there?
Well, it was interesting that even though Judge David Doty ruled that he could not be indefinitely suspended and they could not wait until April 15th to consider reinstating him to the league, that Goodell has moved him onto the commissioner's exempt list, from which only he can reinstate him. And he said just a few minutes ago, without elaborating, that he's going to meet with him, the player, before he reinstates him, and he gave no exact time.
What does that suggest to you?
We're still 3 weeks away from the deadline they set all along. It's very likely it could go that far, and I think it's worth noting that Mike Zimmer, the head coach, said again today that they have had dialogue. They have no plans to trade Adrian Peterson, and that they are trying to work something out that would allow him to stay in Minnesota. They've had no discussions with other teams about trading Adrian Peterson.
Well, even though you live in Dallas and you cover the Cowboys, I want to talk to Adam about Greg Hardy. Blame the host of the show, I guess. What did you hear about Greg Hardy?
Well, it's interesting because everybody knows that Greg Hardy last year spent the year on the commissioner's exempt list like Adrian Peterson. He did get paid for not playing in games. And the NFL and Roger Goodell made it very clear they're clearly reviewing their case. This is a chance to get right some of the things that the league didn't get right last year. The league changed a lot of its personnel, brought aboard a lot of outside voices and perspectives. And it wants to hear those voices and perspectives before it makes a decision on Greg Hardy. But clearly, Roger Goodell said there that potential discipline for Greg Hardy is coming in the quote-unquote near future. And Jason Garrett earlier today said he thinks that there could be a decision on Greg Hardy in the next couple of weeks. And I think most people believe that he'll be facing some sort of potential suspension.
You would think that they would do it before the draft so that could help them prepare for the draft.
They want to get it right. They want to get it right, and they made that very clear. But it sounds like they've done a lot of work into this already, and they're getting ready to make the decision. And again, you continue to hear anywhere from 4 to 12 games for Greg Hardy, with 6 being a potential landing spot.
Bill, there are a number of NFL franchises that are in a state of flux for a number of issues. What stood out for you?
Well, 2 things. Number one, the Wells report. He was asked with no uncertain terms, is the Wells report going to be done before the draft, because the assumption being that draft choices would be taken if there was a violation. And he said there was no time frame. To me, that's news, because that the indication was that he had said earlier in another interview that it would be done by the draft.
And what about the state of distress of the Tennessee Titans organization?
That's the other big issue. He clearly did not cast a vote of confidence for the present ownership. He said there were issues with ownership, there were issues with management, senior management, and involvement with the league. And he had a meeting with the ownership, including Bob McNair, the owner of the Houston Texans, who is a senior member of the finance committee. So that's one to keep your eye on.